Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most egregious and immoral acts, or unethical, I should say, one of the most unethical acts by Mueller's special counsel, or even by I should say, even by the FBI prior to Mueller's special counsel, was setting up and framing General Michael Flynn. What they did was tell Flynn to meet with Peter Strzok without an attorney. And then they hid, and this is when he was an incoming national security advisor, to meet without an attorney to speak about issues that he had already been, there was no crime there. They had already read, they had already read the transcripts of his discussions with Sergei Kislyak. He did not speak about anything. They say, well, you know what? He spoke about sanctions. Nothing he spoke about with Sergei Kislyak was off limits. He wasn't indicted on anything like that. He wasn't indicted. He was only indicted on allegedly, supposedly, lying to FBI agents. But now, this is huge news. He might do away with the plea deal. He has new legal representation. So he let go of his prior legal counsel and has new legal counsel. But let's just read this. So, Michael Flynn's calls no wrongdoing. Let's just read this. So, FBI reviewed Flynn's calls with Russian ambassador, but found nothing illicit. Okay, so when people are like, oh my God, Flynn. Okay, FBI reviewed Flynn's calls with Russian ambassador, but found nothing illicit. This is by Ellen Nakasimi and Greg Mueller, January 23rd, 2017. The FBI in late December reviewed intercepts of communications between the Russian ambassador to the United States and retired Lieutenant General Michael T. Flynn, National Security Advisor to then President-elect Trump, but has not found any evidence of wrongdoing or illicit ties to the Russian government. But has not found any evidence of wrongdoing or illicit ties to the Russian government. The calls were picked up as routine electronic surveillance of Russian officials. Really? So routine. Now we're finding out nothing was routine about it. So FBI reviewed Flynn's calls with Russian ambassador, but found nothing illicit. Nothing, no wrongdoing, nothing. Okay. Oh, but the judge said, okay. No, the judge never said anyone sold their country out. He said that, but he apologized for that. See, what took place, this is a Hill article. So during the last sentencing drama in December of 2018, before the Mueller probe came out, where we realized now that it was complete nonsense. Everything was complete nonsense. There was no evidence of anything. Sullivan later said he misspoke. So initially, the judge, who's a very honorable man, the judge who actually presided over a Clinton, I think he's presiding or presided over numerous Clinton cases where he's like, oh my God, this is the worst example of just basically treachery. I mean, he went after the Golden Muumuu. But, quote, I'm not hiding my disgust, my disdain for this criminal offense, he continued. Quote, all along you were an unregistered agent of a foreign country while serving as the national security advisor to the President of the United States. Arguably, that undermines everything this flag over here stands for. Arguably, you sold your country out. Then, they went after that. They flew with that, rode with that. The media just went after it. Oh my God, you see what he said? Sullivan later said he misspoke. So the judge misspoke. Judge Sullivan later said he misspoke when suggesting Flynn acted as a foreign agent in the White House, noting Flynn's lobbying work ended before he started working with the Trump administration. I felt terrible about that, Sullivan said after a brief recess. Sullivan said he would take into account Flynn's public service and military career and his cooperation in the investigation when sentencing him. So, in a surprise twist, Flynn decided to delay his sentencing on Tuesday. Great move, because a couple months later, there's no evidence of anything to charge anyone with any endeavor to conspire against the United States government. Okay, so now we are... So now we're at a situation where, number one, his calls had nothing illicit. And I explained in my Federalist article why President Trump should pardon Michael Flynn. One of my Federalist articles, President Trump should pardon Michael Flynn. But we find out without any, there's no question, ladies and gentlemen, no question at all, that his discussions with Sergei Kislyak, nothing was illegal or illicit or there was no wrongdoing. Then we find out without a shadow of a doubt that the judge in the case momentarily was wrong. He was never... Michael Flynn, God bless him, he's an honorable man. General Flynn deserves to be completely, he is exonerated, but completely pardoned or cleared, actually reimbursed by the United States government, as do all the Mueller, everyone who had suffered from that Mueller investigation. The Democrats should give them all their money. This was an example of malice. They lost the election. They fabricated an unlawful probe, made people, Paul Sperry has a great article today, one person had a stroke, other people lost their retirement savings trying to battle this nonsense. This was the most egregious, nauseating, disgusting type of state power turned upon people who had nothing to do with buying No one bought any Facebook ads here. The United States government hasn't even stated with certainty that the DNC was even hacked. The ODNI and DHS reports come with warranty disclaimers. Our judgments should not be confused with fact. Our judgments could be wrong. The DNC never gave its computer service to the FBI. But further, the evidence was not sufficient to charge that any member of the Trump campaign conspired with representatives of the Russian government to interfere in the 2016 election. Further, the evidence was not sufficient to charge that any member of the Trump campaign conspired with representatives of the Russian government to interfere in the 2016 election. Then why is Michael Flynn still in legal jeopardy? Who cares what Peter Strzok says? Peter Strzok was fired from the FBI. Now... And he was set up and framed. They told him to meet with Strzok without legal counsel. Oh, it was just an informal discussion. Oh, then they said, oh, yeah, well, it was part of an overall probe. Nobody knew there was a probe. Then here's the audio of voicemail that Trump lawyer John Dowd left for Michael Flynn. No, it was for the attorney. It's wild to hear. Don't you think Mueller has this voicemail? And then the recording is like, you can hear the recording, but it's barely audible. John Dowd speaks like this, basically. Have you ever... It's basically like if Winston Churchill left a voicemail after smoking like 5 cigars and drinking half a bottle of cognac. It's just basically this. So... this is hilarious. Thank you, leftist person on Twitter. This is, you can look on, and they're like, oh my God, breaking, Michael Flynn has has fired his counsel, retaining a new lawyer ahead of his sentencing. And they're like, oh my God, here's the audio of the voicemail that Trump lawyer John Dowd left Michael Flynn. Oh my God, this is yet another reason to indict Trump.
Mueller has the voicemail.
Hello? Mueller has the voicemail. Disgruntled imbeciles on the left. He had the voicemail. He still found, further, the evidence was not sufficient to charge that any members of the Trump campaign conspired with representatives. Oh, okay, so this is the part of the obstruction. He still said they couldn't come to a conclusion on obstruction. But there is no obstruction because this has nothing to do with the investigation. Hey, Rob, this is John again. So he's speaking to the attorney. Maybe I'm sympathetic. I understand your situation, but let's see if I understand your situation, but let me see if I can't state it in starker terms. If you have, and it wouldn't surprise me if you've gone to make a deal with and work with the government, I understand that you can't join the joint defense, so that's one thing. If, on the other hand, there's information that implicates the president, then we've got a national security issue, or maybe a national security issue, I don't know. Okay, there's nothing here that's illicit. Some issue we got to deal with, not only for the president, but for the country, so we need some kind of heads up. He's not saying don't say anything. He's saying if you're going to say something, let us know. Just for the sake of protecting. It's called having attorneys who actually, there are great attorneys, there are not so great attorneys. Okay? Most lawyers aren't very good. They just aren't. Some are fantastic. Very few, just like in any profession, very few are amazing. Okay? Then we need some kind of heads up, just for the sake of protecting all our interests, if we can, without you having to give up any confidential information. He's literally saying, don't give up confidential information. So, if it's the former, then remember that we've always said that the president has feelings towards Flynn, and that still remains. But, again, that's okay. They're like, oh my God, he tipped the scales. Like, Flynn should never have been indicted to begin with. The whole thing was a setup and framed. The guy got framed. This is all from Madam Cyberhack, the Golden Muumuu, to ascend and liberals to jump off the cliff. And I'm telling you, nobody will be happier when Hillary Clinton runs for president than H.A. Goodman than me. Nobody will be happier. Tears of joy will run down my face. I am telling you, because all of this, unlawful, criminal, unethical, immoral, treacherous, all of these treacherous acts against people like Michael Flynn were committed to pave the way for Clinton to run. When she runs, she will lose again. And Democrats and liberals and the media will convince themselves she could win. And then when they lose, they will have two choices in 2020. A year and a half from now, they will have two choices. They will either completely rebuild or make certain that their political party, movement, / whatever, is irrelevant and erased from history, essentially. And we don't know what they'll do. But you will then see indictments of people either prior to the election or before. But you're going to see then they'll be at their weakest point, but we need Clinton to run, and she will run. So I'm not into prophecies or whatever. I mean, there's a chance she could win. So she won't win, but there's a chance. My prediction officially is that Clinton's going to lose again, that she's going to run, of course, and she's going to lose again, and President Trump is going to win again. There is no prophecy or plan, but I'm trying to say, for the Democratic Party and for media to finally experience what they deserve, you have to have the Golden Muumuu run again and lose again. When she runs, she's going to lose. So anyway. So if it's the former, then remember that we've always said about the president's feeling towards Flynn, and that still remains. Well, in any event, let me know, and I appreciate your listening, taking the time. Thanks, pal. There's nothing here that, we'll use will use the logic utilized by Clinton. Well, we don't know if that money flowing into the Clinton Foundation was by Uranium One CEOs was meant to grease the wheels for the uranium sale. We have no clue. So there's nothing here that says nothing here in this voicemail that says, oh yeah, this is an obstructive voicemail. There's nothing here that says that. Literally says, hey, don't give us any confidential information. And he didn't see. This is the thing. The investigation is an investigation into wrongdoing. They're looking into a criminal conspiracy of individuals who defrauded the United States government and worked with Russia to influence the election behind the back of the Democratic Party and the United States government. It never, ever, 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 ever happened, and the ODNI and DHS reports already stated that never happened. We already knew that never happened. None of that happened. None of this happened. So they can take their obstruction of justice nonsense and shove it where you know what. Because it's complete. See, they tried to utilize the United States government in this foolproof plan. Like, well, you know what? We fabricated the collusion thing, but if we don't get them on collusion, we'll get them on obstruction of justice. Because, you know, the mere fact that we're investigating is just so should be revered. So if we just make up the investigation, the reverence alone for what we the reverence alone that should be afforded our investigation, it will be enough to just get him on obstruction. It's like these people living, and then they're like, oh my God, you see what happened? They go on Twitter, and they just, what they do on Twitter is they simply just, foment and amplify the same voices that have continually been wrong in the past. The same people who said Clinton was going to win are the same people who then said that Trump worked with Russia, who are the same people who then said that, well, you know what, he couldn't indict, but, obstruction of justice. So, oh no, oh my gosh, they're going after this journalist on the left. I'm just not even gonna bring up anything. Oh my God. They are now going after this journalist on the left. Wow. Oh my God. I'm just looking at some. Oh my goodness. The left is completely. What's happening right now, and hopefully Michael Flynn gets exonerated. Hopefully when the sentencing does take place, he gets cleared of everything. The judge treats him fairly, especially with everything he's been through. Michael Flynn was the first, and he will be now essentially the last person. And I wrote, in the Federalist, why President Trump should pardon Michael Flynn. If you look at my Federalist article, just go to my Federalist author page. Because Mueller found no collusion, Trump should pardon Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn was framed so certain unethical officials could eventually set up Trump. Now that we know there's no collusion, Trump should pardon Flynn. That, ladies and gentlemen, is, it's very important. It's very important. I always said the day that it happened in 2017, I said that President Trump should never should absolutely never have fired Michael Flynn. And I remember, they were going after Sessions, they were going after Flynn, and it was the same time period. Sessions, they were after Sessions, they went after Flynn. And I said, don't cave to these people. I said, you can actually watch the beginning segment. I said, don't cave to these people. It was this McCarthy era. I mean, Al Franken, Fish Lips Al Franken, was the guy doing the, McCarthy era. He was doing the Joe McCarthy, Joseph McCarthy, imitation. And I said, don't cave to these people, Mr. President. Don't cave to these people. If you cave to certain people and they say, well, you know what, if you just do this, we'll leave you alone. That's the people who are and want to extort you will never, ever, ever be happy with anything. They're going to continue to. And so I said, and President Trump didn't know. He didn't know at that point the overarching investigation, didn't understand that he was never told. But I'm telling you, had President Trump simply not acquiesced and let Michael Flynn go, he should have kept Michael Flynn. There was nothing that he did wrong with his consulting prior to becoming president. They would have gone after that fine. But had he kept Michael Flynn, he would have then said, hey, he could have simply made that the cause célèbre, and that would have not enabled them to engage in the Mueller probe. They had to knock out his national security advisor first. They had to force President Trump, and this was a strategic mistake that he made in the very beginning. They had to force President Trump to fire one of his trusted, most loyal cabinet members. They had to. Once they were able to do that, then they could then say, oh, well, you know what? You have no right to, you had somebody close to you who was already suspect, and now you're letting Comey go. Oh my God, we need a special counsel. They would never have gotten away with a special counsel because they would have still been focusing on Flynn. He would have still been national security advisor. He could have simply said, you know what? As president, I'm going to declassify whatever I need to declassify in order to exonerate my national security advisor, which would mean that, oh yeah, Andrew McCabe and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and all of them, oh yeah, we'll stop Trump. If we had known about that text, and there was a way that President Trump could have found that text out, I guess, you know what, from his vantage point, he didn't know at that point, but see, for 2 years, or maybe he knew, maybe he didn't know, who knows, but for 2 years, they investigated him with a special counsel where Democrats had ultimate power. The media was fomenting this gigantic fantasy where people still believe that Michael Flynn did something wrong. He didn't. Anyway, he should never have let Michael Flynn go because he simply, look, we're now waiting for President Trump to declassify. He could have simply said, not only am I not firing Michael Flynn, because the FBI already, and this was public record, this is the Washington Post, the FBI already reviewed Flynn's calls with Sergei Kislyak. He said nothing. Then the whole, why was he even, it was lying to, the initial news story was that Flynn lied to, it was so absurd, Flynn lied to Pence regarding how Michael Flynn lied to the FBI as well as Vice President Pence. Yeah, right. See, that was the whole thing. There wasn't the issue of lying to the FBI at that point. Okay? It was, you didn't tell Pence about your conversation with Sergei Kislyak, but he never he never engaged in any wrongdoing in that conversation. So Pence, who cares what Pence? Who cares what Pence said? I mean, what he told Pence. Who cares? National Security Advisor Michael Flynn discussed sanctions with Russia. So what? Who cares? He could have discussed sanctions, and it wasn't an issue. There was nothing illicit. The Washington Post even reported that. Then they said, well, he lied to the vice president about what he discussed with. Who cares? And then President Trump, February 16, 2017, I fired Flynn because of what he told Pence. That was a wrong move. That was just a wrong move. A defiant President Trump insisted that he asked Michael Flynn to resign because Flynn's statements to Vice President. The President also denied that he told his key national security advisor to discuss sanctions with a Russian official. Again, this whole, who cares if he did discuss sanctions? Madam Cyberhack has this goofy photo with a giant reset button with Russia. They're in '08, there are Guardian articles that said that Putin was happy that Obama had won. Who cares? I mean, he could have simply fought back, but see, there was such hysteria that for a moment in time, the fight, President Trump is a fighter, and I like the fact that he fights. For a moment in time, I mean, that was an initial mess up by President Trump. He should never have let them go, let Flynn go. He did that. He paved the way for the special counsel. Give me your thoughts below. They're talking about Michael Flynn. They should be saying that, he should be exonerated. Not that, oh my God, it's just an example of obstruction. Then impeach Trump already, and the Democrats will fail yet again. Give me your thoughts. My Patreon is below, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support my voice long term. And read my writing in The Federalist, The Daily Caller, The Jerusalem Post. Rush Limbaugh shared my Federalist article to millions and millions of people. I'm very proud. That's in the pinned comment. Thank you.